And let me know if the background gets too much. Hey, everybody. Welcome. Money Never Sleeps, episode 4. We're waiting for the homie Sadboi to join. But in the meantime, welcome to the show. I appreciate everyone being patient. I need to get the garage dialed in, but at least we're out of the bedroom. And we're in a new venue. So I want to say how excited I am to have this group. All the artists today, hopefully Sad Boy is going to be in a sec, but all of them have worked closely with me. I own one or more one of ones editions, and they're all early artists on the Money Click. And so I'm really psyched. The last two shows have been some people who've been quite established in the space, and I think the people today are what I'd like to call emerging stars, well known, been very successful, have wide appeal, and I'm really excited. They're all disciplined, committed, and I know them all personally, and it's been a joy. So as usual, we're gonna just keep it chill today. We're gonna chat as friends, and so my question to start the dialogue off, because many of these artists have now worked together, it's their first time meeting, is what has been the most fun thing for you or the most surprising thing in NFTs so far?
Can I start?
Go for it.
All right. So I think the most surprising thing in NFTs before I actually started doing art is that it's actually super hard to make money. When I entered the space back in 2021, it was like I was looking for something to do with my life, and I liked crypto, and I thought there was a huge potential. And then I saw these articles and stuff about these monkeys. Jesus, and I just jumped in, and I thought it would be like, okay, it's not gonna be that hard. If back then was like 4K, and I thought I need to make like 0.3 a month to live in Prague, so I thought it was gonna be okay, and I got wrecked so fucking bad. It was so surprising, man. So surprising.
Adam and Jeremy, how about you? I know
Okay,
both of you had different experiences coming from. Adam, you were a full-time artist since 2015.
2014, yeah. I went full-time artist first time in 2010, and then 2014, 2015, 2016 were all big years in the traditional art gallery or contemporary fine art world. But to answer your question, most fun I've had in NFTs would probably be singing karaoke with Rob Ness.
Tell us that story. and welcome to our favorite heartthrob, Sadboi.
What's up?
Welcome.
Can you guys hear me and stuff?
Well, yeah, it was NFT NYC. So I think this bridges into the most fun that I've had actually in NFTs was meeting people IRL, like meeting people that I knew from the space that I'd gotten to know. And then so it's interesting, because we talk about how it's your thing, the new friend technology of this. But yeah. So it was after the events had ended. I think it was on Saturday now, NFT NYC 2023. I did a MoMA trip with some good friends, Lawrence, Jenny, Aaron, Victoria. And then we all went our separate ways, and I went downtown, down to Chinatown to meet up with my friend Michele, and we ran into Rob Ness on the street, and then and Food Mask U and Empress Trash. They were all there, and so sang karaoke with ended the night singing karaoke. Rob Ness, Food Mask U, and Empress Trash, and Ina Vara. I think.
Which song?
What did I sing? I sang "In Bloom" by Nirvana.
Oh, and by the way, I have to give the Birds credit for NFTs being new friend technology. I use it a lot.
Well,
he gets credit. Yeah, to the Birds. That's great. How about you, Jeremy and Sadboi? What's been the most surprising or most fun thing for you in NFTs so far?
Well, I kind of mentioned it earlier today on Twitter. I think I've been a commercial artist for a long time, and thankful that I was able to do art, for a living, but for other people, I guess. Never really felt like a fine artist. Never felt like I could just produce artwork and actually make a living on like whatever that is. It's always like a work for hire situation for me. And so I think the most exciting thing about the technology in the space is that has allowed me to kind of like transition, I guess, from a commercial artist to a fine artist. And I think, I don't know, it feels appropriate and right for me personally. It's exciting. I can actually just pursue exactly what I want to produce. Yeah, I think it's awesome. So
That's super dope, bro. Sadboi.
What was the question again? Sorry, I popped in a little
No
bit late.
worries. No worries, brother. What's been the most surprising or exciting thing about NFTs so far?
Let's go with exciting, I guess, for me is just not working in a restaurant anymore. Like literally just making art for a living is the dream. So like that's super exciting to me. So
Yeah, for me, it's been, I talked about it yesterday on a Spaces, is the real life connections and friendships with artists and collectors. And I think we live in this weird little bubble where we're usually behind a screen and people have anonymous names. And to me, one of the great joys is like meeting in person or spending a lot of time like this with the people in the space who share this kind of wacky interests we're all in. And so, why don't you guys, some of you have done collabs together. Recently, Sadboi and Jeremy did. Can you talk about how you think about, as an artist, doing collabs, or how collabs have come about for you? And then I'm going to make each of you ask the question you promised to prepare, so be ready.
Well, just to give you context, it's not like a true collaboration in the sense of like my artwork meets Sadboi's artwork, but to give full context, myself and my buddy Nico, we kind of curate through Foundation Worlds what's called Western Art Department. And so the idea is to bring the tradition of Western art into the Web3 space. And I've been a huge fan of Sadboi since probably the first time I saw his work. And just Nico and I have been talking about, probably from the very beginning, about getting him in to produce a Western themed piece. And so we chatted with him a couple weeks ago. He was on board. He created a killer piece, and he is releasing that I think next week or July 6th or something like that. So,
yeah,
Sadboi, if you want to talk any more about that, I don't want to like fully take over there. So.
no, yeah, I was super excited when you reached out because when you first announced the Western art department, I was like, I feel like I could do something for that. And then it just so happened you messaged me a few weeks later. So I was like super pumped. I'd never really done Western stuff before. I did one piece for a degeneracy deck or something like that of like a cowboy, but I wanted to expand on my Western stuff a little bit further. And I kind of had this idea in my head of like kind of like this wild bunch kind of trio, just like galloping through the desert, and I was just like, this is perfect. I had this in my head for a long time, and it all just kind of came to fruition. So I was super excited about it.
Yeah, the piece is super dope. And Adam and Bastien, anything you'd like to share on how you approach those or think about collabs?
Yeah, I mean, sure. I've done countless collabs in the NFT space with artists from all over the world. It's fantastic. I think I approach each one individually. It depends on the artist I'm working with. We generally, I feel them out well beforehand. Some collaborations have gone very quickly. Some of them taken months. I think the ones I've enjoyed the most have been the ones where, like, honestly, one of my favorite collabs I ever did was with Tim Maxwell. And he basically sent me a portfolio of works to explore. And then I picked a few and I showed them to him. And then he was like, okay, great. Yeah, go run for it. Run with it. So then it's like, there's always who's going to start it off, who's going to start off. So it started off with him sending me pictures to play with or explore or something around. And then it turned into basically like Tim's work being like this pillar, like a stone pillar that I'm like basically like dancing around, and I'm like basically like just playing off of, and I'm sending him whips and he's giving me commentary, and then like, it becomes this organic process. But generally, like it's me interacting with his work, you know, and it formed this like this process was so organic and like so much fun. And honestly, it really informed future digital art creation for me. Like like I still use like some of the techniques I practiced for the first time in that collab today in the pieces that I'm creating. You know what I mean? And I think, you know, I think that's really
you learn from the collab.
Oh
That's
yeah,
a
and
cool
those are the
thing,
best
'cause
ones where like you come away from it with having like elevated, you've grown somehow, you know, your work, your process and your work has changed from working with another artist you admire and respect, and just from the conversation to the execution, it's just fantastic.
that's a wonderful way to think about it. I often think of collabs as, you know, a chance to introduce each artist to the other artists, collectors. And I think, like you said, the process of being inspired by someone else's work you respect, like Jeremy talked about Sadboi, and you know, he shared some stuff. I think that's a wonderful thing that artists can do in the space to have fun, to expand their collector base, and you know, to push their style in a way that is less risk than if they did it on their own. So, Bastien, anything on that topic?
Yeah, I would just like to add that, you know, for me, for in the year that I have been in the space, for that year, it was, I only had 2 collabs so far, because I have always been like more like a lone wolf, because, you know, I'm an only child, stuff like that. So it's a bit hard for me to just reach other people, you know, to work with them. But one collab I did was last June, I think. It's a year ago, I did with Twig. And the other was a week ago with Dominic G. It was super entertaining, both of them. But this one is my recent memory. And I really enjoyed the process, because me and Dominic, we have been vibing in the DMs for like, I don't know, 6 months or 7 months, for a long time. And I really dig his style, because, you know, it's all astral, psychedelic, ketamine shit. And I love it. I love the vibes of it. And I always admired his art. And he said something similar about my art. So we decided to do something together. And from, you know, my approach to collaborations, it's not, I think it's not as difficult, at least with these collabs that I did, because I do environments. So I usually create the environment for the collab piece, and the other person does the elements in it. So in this case with Dominic, I just did the video shop, the blockbuster or blockchain buster, and he created the psychedelic elements, the cartoon stuff, the shining lights and stuff like that. And I really enjoyed that, because it was a hell of a ride. You know,
That's super dope. He's a dope dude too. He and I hung a bunch in Paris. He's cool. He's a really cool dude.
Yeah, I heard.
With underscore as well. I'm going to switch gears, and you know, something that was a big hot thing last year was artist tokens, and obviously all of you dropped for MoneyClick a curation token. Bastien, you have a token with 14 outstanding. Adam, you have a token. Jeremy, you have Boots, which is your access, and Sadboi, you don't. How do each of you think about, now that you're creating art? Jeremy, you branched in some different spaces. I know each of you have done various things. How do you think about your token now, sort of in this market? How does having a token impact how you release art? Or in your case, Jeremy, how do you think about Western Art Department and Boots, and how it impacts how you approach the space? And Sadboi, having no token, and you know, mostly, how do you guys, it's very interesting to hear from each of you, like in a different position, how it's been a benefit for you and how it's a constraint. So anything you'd like to share on that, I would love. And I'm going to force each to do a question after this.
I mean,
promised.
For me personally, I mean, when I released it, it was what, $23. You know, I a lot of them sold, which I'm grateful for, but I try not to really overthink and try to get too in the weeds there. Like, you know, it was access all the way from the very beginning. So when I release limited editions personally, not necessarily with collaborative releases or limited editions. But for me personally, it's all boots. So you have to own boots to get access. You know, we just did I just did a burn to redeem with Robert Hagen, and so 100 boots were burned to receive one of his pieces. So I try not to overthink it. I think at the end of the day, if I really get stressed about it or try to, you know, dig too much into the thought process there, I kind of lose sight of art creation in a lot of ways. And so I just try to keep it light, I guess, because at the end of the day, that's all it ever really was. It was just for accessibility. Kind of came to this idea or understanding that like not everyone could afford my work. Here it is for $23. You could go and spend that on 2 cocktails or a cocktail in a, you know, an app or whatever. Or you could buy a piece of
one
my
cocktail
piece.
in San Francisco.
And and you know, I've also been producing different variations of boots over time as well. So it kind of changes over time. And so I don't know. I just try to keep it loose. I just really kind of just focusing on the art. So and like I said, when you know I drop in a limited edition later on this year, it'll be for boots holders and stuff like that. So try not to overcomplicate.
Nice. Well, I'll go. Yeah, so the ADAD token dropped last year sometime. It's been great, man. You know, it was really good. I consulted with multiple people, including yourself, OG, on how to execute that. The token like today, past, present, future, the thing has really been excellent in terms of establishing relationships with people and then maintaining relationships. And that's really what the AD token like has really been for me. It's also been an opportunity to, you know, I personally I'm working all the time. Okay. So I'm creating work in mass and I don't mint or release nearly all of it. So I have this opportunity with the token to, you know, give some of it away, you know, and I like that. I personally, I like to do that. I really like sharing my art with the community. See, I am of the belief from my experience as an artist for a professional fine artist for a decade that actually all I'm doing as a living artist is curating a body of work for future generations. So the only goal is to really get the work into the hands of people who are going to value it and then help me curate it properly. So the AD token has only really helped me do that because it's helped me establish a network where I know these people like my work, are going to value it. And honestly, I'm just super grateful because if you look at the contract that token is on, like the floor is insanely high. It's like, I'm so freaking grateful.
And you have an active Twitter group where people participate daily, which,
yeah. And I recently had to and I mean, you know, so when I entered the space in March 2021, like I've always played around with the utility of NFTs. It's basically something that I've literally done from the first hour I entered the space in March, because the first thing I ever minted on OpenSea was like a Quanta token, you know, which would enable people which would give people access to my work. And so, you know, I did that on Tezos also, and the space has really, really developed in the past few years. So a lot of people that like got super enthusiastic and collected a lot and were super active are not active anymore. So I had to merge the two. I had a Tezos group, I had an ETH group, you know, I had a lot going on. So I had to simplify it a little bit. So I ended up merging both those groups into one, and that's been really good. So, yeah, today the AD token really is just a place for me to like maintain relationships. It gets you access to my Twitter group, you know, really where it's just mostly a place to say GM, you know, I share other artists' work. I'm sharing, I keep my drops mostly public. I personally feel that where we are right now, inclusivity is really, really important. So I'm not really doing much with the 80 token aside from just like doing airdrops and like for like smaller editions, I'll do like a claim page every once in a while. Yeah. So,
that's super helpful.
Yeah.
Bastien, how about you, buddy? You have a limited amount. Adam, how many tokens do you have?
14.
There's 25.
Yeah. Yeah. So you're both reasonably limited audience, which is good too. So even like the edition size, is not so much to handle like some of the bigger tokens.
Yeah, but for me, to be honest, it was quite different when I was creating the Delca 03, the Genesis token. I didn't even think about it as a token. I was like creating art, and I didn't even imagine minting that shit. And then Uncle and Ben they told me to mint it, and then I started crunching some numbers, and I was like, okay, let's do an edition. And it seems like I could actually be an artist, which this was also the first time in my life when it actually looked like I could be an artist. Before that I was doing some stupid, shitty jobs, and I just did art on the background. And now I thought, okay, this is the first day of me being an actual artist, like living off of art. So I decided to drop 14 pieces because I was born on the 14th day of the month. So I wanted to the edition size to symbolize me being reborn into the real me, or whatever, anyway you want to look at it. And then I was talking to the collectors of the Lucky 03, including you, OG, and the people were so cool, and I realized that I have found a gold vein, like for myself, for my life, that I could live off of this. Not like a gold vein in like infinite money, but gold vein in like opportunity to self-realize.
Now you could be.
I can be an artist,
you
exactly.
Can be a full-time artist, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So I decided that there needs to be some reward or some rewards or something like that. But I didn't want to limit myself by saying I will drop once a month, because my piece takes like 10 days of work. So I can't put 2 weeks, half of each month to do airdrops. Not even speaking about the supply. So far it has been a year, and I dropped like 2 airdrops, which with some interesting mechanics. Each time every collector got to choose out of 2 tokens. So not tokens, out of 2 new artworks. So there's always a little play about it. But the deal, like the approach that I'm trying to take, is that this is forever going to be my most important edition, because it changed my life, and I want my approach to this collection to reflect that. So I will always do some interesting shit for these.
It's dope.
I just
it's
want
really
to say, Bastien,
I
just wanted to add to you, man. Like I like that a lot, and I just want to say, I definitely I would recommend just don't feel pressured at all to like produce more just to airdrop to your homies. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, we talked about that, Adam.
It's a long form game, man. It's just, create what you like, and when you like it, when you feel it, and when you're feeling it and you're feeling generous and you're feeling passionate and you're like, hey, you know what? I want to give something away right now, then do it. And, if it's 2 a year, whatever, it doesn't, when it feels right and you have the work and you're feeling it and you're feeling good about it, that's when it counts. Don't feel, yeah.
Okay, thanks. Thanks for saying that, man. I actually do that, and I drop whenever I feel like dropping. When I'm doing when I think of a new piece, and I'm like, okay, this could be an airdrop or something like that to the holders, and then I just proceed with the thought. But it's not like I pressure myself, and to be honest, it's impossible to pressure myself, because I'm super anxious, and when I overwork myself, I collapse totally, I implode, and I die physically and mentally. So I cannot pressure myself.
Yeah, I think one interesting takeaway is 3 of you of the 4 half tokens have no commitment to any sort of drop schedule, and this is something Adam and I talked about at length before. And I think Jeremy, you thought of yours more like you said, hey, it's access. So the reason it seems like you've probably been able to persevere while many who drop tokens it's been the death of them in a way, is that you didn't commit to a fixed drop schedule. And I think that's, look, tokens are, I understand the challenge and the opportunity of a token. Like you've learned today, you can build a tight community of faithful and loyal collectors. And most artists do great if they have 20 collectors, 20 to 30 collectors. It's not usually, a small group of collectors can help grow an artist. And so you've heard today a good side of these, and that for all the artists who have it, the 3 to the 4, it's been actually a way to build the community. And I think if we'd asked this 6 months ago, the people who would have been in the most difficult position were the ones who made a lot of fixed commitments, and thus had expectations, and thus were doing art under pressure. So I want to flip it up a bit. We're all buddies, and I asked each of you to come with a question. It can be about anything from the market to anything you feel you want to talk about. So I'm going to turn over the mic. And if you don't have anything, I can keep going. But I'd love, as we talked about, each of you to bring one question. And you can ask the group. Yeah, let's rock, brother.
I guess my question to you all is what does your all's process look like? And I guess we can end with me answering my own question. So
let's get us some Sadboi. Come on, buddy.
All right. Yeah. My process kind of starts out differently depending on the piece. A lot of times I get kind of like just like a random vision in my head, I guess. And then I go right to the iPad and start sketching, which is a lot of the time. So I almost use like my iPad as almost like a sketch pad, like a sketch notepad, like thumbnail thing as well. So I don't really have like a place where I can sorry, I'm losing my train of thought. I know a lot of artists have like a notebook where they kind of like jot down their ideas and their thumbnails and stuff like that. I, however, do that all like kind of on a whim, just right away on my iPad. So if you look at my time lapses, you can often see me like working through a composition. Like you can see me like kind of trying to figure it out, and then I'll like kind of undo everything and like redo it. And like, so if you look back on some of my time lapses, I'll have like a completely different composition at the beginning, and then I'll completely wipe it.
You just using layers to do that? Are you usually using layers?
I mean, I'll just erase. I'll just do it on one and just erase the whole thing. So like, I'm just like constantly like coming up with like sketch after sketch after sketch, and then after that, my process gets a lot more narrowed down, right? So I'll do like line work, and then I'll do color blocking, and then I'll do texture, and then I'll do just like final details and kind of clean things up a little bit. So yeah, that's kind of like the gist of it, I guess.
I have a question too on this. You said you delete everything like as you go, so you use one layer?
During the kind of like preliminary like sketch phase, yeah. Like, so I usually only have like one layer that I'm sketching on. So once I feel confident that I'm like okay with the composition, then I proceed to like add more layers, obviously, of like line work, and by the end I have like 30 layers or something ridiculous. But
that was my other question. How many layers do you end up with?
Yeah, I would say like 20 to 30 probably. Yeah.
How many? I'd like to hear from everyone that how many layers. I mean, Adam, we've talked about it. Jeremy, Bastien, just throw out an average number. How many layers are you working?
Yeah, so I don't work in layers. I work, in 3D objects.
Blender,
so in
in
Blender, but I have like, I don't know, up to 300 individual objects, something like that. I don't know. I never counted them, but from the top of my head, I could say it could be up to 300 or something like that.
How about Adam and Jeremy, just a number, and then we'll go back to answer your question. I'm just curious.
As far as when I'm like digital, I usually have layers that define like foreground, subject, background, ground, and sky is kind of maybe clouds too. So yeah, I don't know how many, maybe that's 6 layers.
So
Super
super
minimalistic. Clean, man. It's super clean. So you keep it clean. You got super clean work. It makes sense.
Yeah. The real question is how much time do you put in the cleanness that you put out in your pieces?
How much what?
time.
How
does it
much
take you to
time?
make a
How much
piece?
time? Like how much effort do you put in your pieces to be dead clean? Because I love the cleanliness of your.
I mean, I can usually probably produce a piece in about 2 days. So, that's. I mean, I can explain kind of like when it's my. I don't want to like cut anyone off, but I can kind of explain how I.
Why don't you do
my
here,
whole
and then we'll do Adam and Bastien next.
Okay,
'cause
that's fine.
naturally,
Yeah.
and
So
then
I used to use like for reference material. I used to
Sadboi,
use.
did you get to finish? I feel bad. Did you
Oh,
have
yeah.
anything
No,
else?
I mean,
Yeah.
I'm
To
fairly
kill the flow.
traditional. I think I kind of explained it. It's very, it's
Yeah.
pretty straightforward.
Sorry. Yeah. Okay.
It's all
I
good.
do have a
Sorry,
question for
man.
Sadboi real quick.
Yeah, hit him.
Are you in what software are you ending in for digital? Is it Illustrator?
I do everything in Procreate.
Oh, you do? Dang, it's
Yeah.
it's also very crisp for
Thank you.
Procreate. So well done.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah.
How come you
I was
haven't moved? How come you just? I started. I'm trying to move over from Procreate. I mean, obviously not you guys, but I found Procreate taught me. The first time I looked at Adobe, I was like, "What the fuck?" And then I used Procreate, and now I'm like, "Oh, this makes all the more sense because Procreate made it easy."
I use Procreate because I was a Photoshop guy for years and years and years. And for me, Procreate kind of like streamlines everything I need into like a simpler format, so it just makes everything easier. I'm like not a tech guy at all. Honestly, like for being a digital artist, like I'm like I'm the most traditional, like old school, like
Digital artist.
digital artist ever. Like, so
Yeah.
I'm just like, yeah, I can like paint and draw on this. Like, it's so like for me, Procreate was like, hell yeah, like this makes things way easier. And so that's
really
why
interesting to
I
hear.
use
So
it.
so you basically felt, look, this is the simplified version. It gets what I need.
Hmm.
I learned it was easy to learn on Procreate, and Adam was helpful. One of my, teaching me how to make glitch, and so that's interesting to hear.
Yeah, so
yeah.
I used to start like for references and stuff, leveraging like 3D software for lighting and posing and stuff like that. But that has since changed. I was recently invited out to Kansas with Robert, and I spent about 3 days there on a ranch, and we photographed cowboys. So I went with like a shot list in mind of like different compositions and things that I wanted to shoot. Obviously, there was plenty of opportunity for more spontaneity as well. So I captured, I mean, between me and my wife, we probably photographed about 2,500, 3,000 photos a day. Now, granted, a lot of it's kind of like sports photography because they're galloping or whatever. And so, you just capture a whole bunch of images in hopes that you get something that's really cool. And so now I've got just plethora of stuff from that trip. I mean, there was wardrobe. So depending on what era of cowboy we wanted to, draw from, different types of jackets, different types of saddles, et cetera, hats, whatever, different types of scenes and stuff. So, and then now I use those as references, do my rough sketching in Procreate, and then I take it over into Illustrator. And so what I usually do is like what I've been doing is I produce one image is like the foreground. So, the figure subject. And then I take like, I was back in Arizona back in November. So I've got landscape photos and stuff. So I kind of integrate and mesh the two to kind of create one artwork, if that makes sense. So once I kind of get both of those set, I then do the rough sketching in Procreate, and then I bring it over into Illustrator, get all the line work and color blocking done in grayscale. And then at that point from grayscale, I then determine my color palette, which actually today I've been testing out, fun little thing, the AI generated color palette changer, whatever it's called in Adobe Illustrator, because I've been testing an image that I've already colored. But
How is that?
It's actually quite interesting.
I tried that generative AI one, and it was on both. I tried it on ML Runway and on Adobe, and it was not like the videos.
Dude, I think I've actually kind of got some cool results. Yeah, so I just select my entire image that is all in grayscale, and then I kind of just start inputting like different types of, prompts for color. And I mean, I haven't used any of them, but it kind of gets me thinking outside the box a little bit, exploring in ways that I haven't yet, because I'm seeing all these colors kind of, or these palettes, produced. And so it's been interesting. It's been fun, actually. So
one cool thing to do is take your work and put it in Midjourney and have Midjourney describe it. There's a describe function in Midjourney, and it'll give you 4 different prompts describing your work and the color schemes, and then you can use those prompts. So one of the things I do now when I look at artists is I take the work and drop it in there and do describe and recreate it in AI, and I see where if the AI can do it, if the AI has, like some artists like Dye, it can't recreate at all. It's really interesting. So I think you should use that both ways. And those, like, once you read the description, it'll prompt you to look at other stuff. So I love that you're doing it that way, and I think that's super cool.
And then lastly, I'm now also painting. So I just produced a 4-foot by 5-foot piece. So I'll go from the digital, kind of match as closely as I can with fluid acrylics, and then, paint it on a canvas. So that's where I'm at right now.
Dope. I think how many of you produce physicals? Adam, I have a physical when I bought a 101. Jeremy, you do now. Sadboi and Bastien, Bastien, I assume, of course, no. But
I'd like to explore that at some point, but my process is so specific in Procreate that I would have to kind of try and figure out how to translate that to physical. Not quite sure how to do it yet, but
like beyond printing.
Yeah, beyond like if I were to like physically paint something.
Yeah, those textures would be kind of difficult to.
I use like
produce.
300. I use like 300 different brushes. Like it's like ridiculous.
Well, there could always be a world where maybe your painted pieces, you integrate some other form of shading or shadowing, if that's how you're using textures, or and it just be kind of slightly different.
Right.
I also think audiences right now, right or wrong, I think currently physical, like, look, you had this experience, Jeremy, with an artist you put through your Western art department where they sell pieces at huge prices offline, like in physical, and they had a much lower price online. And I know some other artists who go the other way. So I actually think right now you can still explore physicals and create a new audience that's separate, and use it to explore work. I don't know if you all agree, but that's been my experience looking at artists.
Yeah, I think so. I think I'm producing right now with the goal of hoping to get some pieces in a gallery in Dallas. I think the reality is for more people to kind of come into this space, the world of art kind of needs to merge. And so in my mind, if I'm already here, and present in this space, well, I'd also like to be in the traditional art space as well, and merge them if I can. At least if not merging, at least people then coming to the understanding of like, oh, well, Jeremy Booth can produce great traditional art, and that we deem as legit, but he's also doing digital art that's interesting. At the end of the day, that's what I'm hoping to achieve. So
it's really important, man. That's what actually got me here intuitively in March 2021. So what brought me here was I just had this feeling that it's been a long form goal to bridge traditional and digital art spaces, and I'm still working at it. Like I have an email group that I have, a network that I've created over the past decade of people all around the world, galleries and collectors, and totally traditional. We're talking like super high end traditional art collectors now. And, and I'm disseminating the information about, digital art space, curated platforms, drops, collabs, when it's appropriate. I'm definitely not like feeding them all of the information, but I'm definitely sharing select information that I feel will serve, that will serve both spaces.
Adam, I'm laughing because if I recall correctly, when I interviewed you like a year ago, and I asked how you got into NFTs, you said that agent or one of the galleries sent a note saying anyone who does NFTs can't.
Right.
Is
Well,
that
he
you
wasn't
or-
my agent. He wasn't an agent,
Yeah.
and he is that's a gatekeeper. That's one of
Oh,
the
okay.
and I know
Am I
and I'll
remembering
never
it
mention
correctly,
I'll never
or is
mention
that
his
right?
name. I'll never mention his name.
Okay.
He's one of the high gatekeepers of the traditional art world. I believe he's the Sotheby's gatekeeper. He is from London. And and he said something on one of the social media platforms about like if anyone says NFTs, they're instantly banned. And this is pre-Beeple sale, and I actually didn't know. So I immediately went and learned as much as I could about NFTs.
That's pretty funny. We've gone so fast. There's 15 minutes left. Bastien, do you want to answer this, or do you guys want to take a shot at one more question?
Answer the question on my process.
Yeah, you want to give a quick one, and then we can ask one more question.
Well, my process is pretty straightforward, I guess. I just, I do 3D. So for anyone who's not, who doesn't know the process, not from you guys, but from the audience, it's basically like creating stuff from clay in digitally, and then painting it with some textures or coding the textures like with visual elements. So basically created the colors and how the colors and the textures of the objects with some pre-coded elements. And usually I have some idea in my head, and the idea usually is like 75% complete, and I know what I want to do. And then I sit down, and then I just, start blocking out the scene, fucking around with objects, elements of the scene, playing a bit with the lights, with the colors, because that's super important for me. Colors define my style. It's very colorful. And then I just, play around with it until I'm satisfied. I guess I could talk a bit more on it, but that's not the point here, I guess.
Yeah, and but you use Blender for, I don't think.
Yeah, I use Blender and After Effects.
Yeah. Okay, do any of the other three of you have a question that you'd like to ask the group? Because I really love when the artists bring questions to each other and to us. So I'd love to hear.
I would like to, if anyone else doesn't want to. My question for you is, how did you arrive at your style? Was it like, for example, Jeremy, was it like I knew I want to do a Western art, and you gradually moved to it, or did you do for example, a cowboy at some point, and you realized, oh my god, I'm gonna do cowboy or something like that, and this applies for everyone.
Yeah, great question. Well, are we talking about subject matter, or are we talking about style, or both?
I guess I mean more like style, but both. Yeah, both.
Okay. Well, as far as like the clean, like limited, minimalist style or whatever, I started as a graphic designer, fell in love with Adobe Illustrator, and kind of like tinkered around with that style for a while in various forms, kind of ended up where I am, and then produced, commercial art in that way for, about 10 years or so. But in regards to the Cowboys, I've been in the space for a couple years now. Started as an artist, one artist, did a PFP thing, came back as an artist in August. And I always had a style in mind, but not a subject matter. And I kind of went through a couple different phases as far as potential like directions. And I was just like, I think, I want to try drawing cowboys and just do a series and go from there. And I just fell in love with the process. And the more I dove into the history of the Cowboys and stuff like that, I just really fell in love and became captivated. And that was solidified back in Kansas when we were doing a whole bunch of cool cowboy shit. And so now I'm just like super excited.
I feel like, Jeremy, actually we were there together, because when you look at, you have that brief pop surrealism where you had a cowboy as one of the subjects, if I remember right.
There was Cardinal has a piece I did. Yeah, it's like a cowboy in the interior of an older truck.
Well, I think
driving
before
smoking a
that,
cigarette.
you had another like when you had those other pieces that I thought you had one other piece that had cowboy. Then you did Simple Life, and Cardinal had one cowboy piece. And I remember you were messing around, and you said, "I feel like with you, you like were hyped when you had sort of been into it, and then you dug in, like you were inspired by cowboys."
Maybe the only one that I can recall right
I'm gonna go
now
back.
is the cowboy driving the truck.
Yeah, which Cardinal has.
Mhm.
Okay. I feel like it's been a transition since, I mean, when I bought your pieces in the Simple Life, you had the cowboy piece with Cardinal, which was your first super rare piece, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah. So,
Mhm.
cool. I'd love for the rest of you to. That's a great question, Bastien.
So Seth,
What's that? Oh,
do you want to answer the question?
Hey, love you, buddy. Yeah, he wants to hear how you ended up with that like mythical
um,
medieval style.
I
Did
think
you?
my style just is like an evolution of like my passion and interest in history. Really, I think I was always interested in mythology and like medieval history and stuff like that. So I wanted to kind of do like my own take on all of it. So it was a very slow evolution of just kind of like figuring out how to do that in a new way. But at the same time, kind of like harken back to like all of these like old, archaic kind of um, styles, I guess. So like I kind of pull a little bit from everywhere. And it's taken, up until very recently, a long time to kind of figure out the formula to that. Um, and yeah, it's kind of just um, just my passion, I guess, is just like learning about these stories and in history and bringing those to life in the best way I know how. So that's kind of my whole thing, I guess.
How quickly did you end up on this like distinct style that you're recognized for? Like, were
Oh,
you doing
I mean, I started in college, and that was
same
13 years
style?
13 years ago. No, I mean, it's taken like I said, like I've been trying to figure it out essentially. Um, and I look back at my old work, and it's similar, but I just hadn't quite really nailed down the process. Like it's like a cruder, less clean version of what I do now. Um, but I've always kind of had a similar, like very textured kind of um, uh, what's not flat,
Like
but kind of.
but rich. But you're saying, yeah. I mean, I think your style is very distinct and recognizable.
Hmm. And lately, I've been pulling a little bit from like more modern theme, like Art Deco and like Romanticism and stuff like that. So it's becoming a little less crude, I guess, and a little more like uh, yeah, like that's romantic, I guess. But I'm sure it'll evolve even more as I go. It's just all kind of like going as I go, you know.
Having a recognizable style, I mean, I think is super critical in this space, and it's interesting. I agree, Bastien. It's a great question because it's really hard. It's so much harder to find a consistent style that you can, um, take like tell a story through that's different, consistently in the same style. And all of you have done such a wonderful job of that.
I think to comment on that, like style, like I think, like we were talking about process earlier, like I think people that have a very distinguished style have like learned to do a specific process and like are just really good at the it's all about the process, just figuring out what works for you and just doing that and you can kind of take that process and put it onto any subject matter, and it'll work, you know.
Yeah,
And I think that's the key, really, you know.
yeah, that's true. And I would also say that I think it's also important to say that, when you have a really distinctive style that is only yours, or, just a few people are doing something a bit similar to this, it's like you are paving your own way, and that's what I like about it. I developed my style. I was inspired by Ness, but other than that, I'm basically just creating my own shit, and I love the process by exploring what I do without trying to look at more successful artists with similar styles, because there's not that many of them. So I just develop it by myself, and that's so rewarding.
It's beautiful, man. Yeah. Create the works you want to see in the world, man. That's it.
That's super cool. One of the interesting things, I think, for three of you, we worked together on the best name for your style. And I think having a distinct name and a distinct style that people can credit to you is a super important thing. And yeah, I think that's dead right. I think anytime art is done, Jeremy, you touched on this at the beginning, out of a requirement as opposed to out of you wanting to produce it or being inspired or needing to produce it as an artist, you get totally different product typically. We have 5 minutes left. Is there any reflections, any comments you'd like to share? Anything? We've all done a lot of stuff together. It can be about stuff we've done, anything about the state of NFTs now. How do you feel as an artist? How do you feel about what are the big opportunities or things you're excited about? I know a lot of people are negative now, but I actually believe the art market, PFP market is obviously separate, but there's still a lot of wonderful things happening in the art market, exciting things happening in the art market. So anything you'd like to share on any of that before we wrap up? I'd like to hear from each of you.
All right, so I guess I'll start. So my opinion on this is that, and maybe I'm the lucky one, and I think, considering what I'm gonna say, all of us here are the lucky ones. But I feel like what is happening on the market, luckily, does not really affect me that much. I still sell my shit. I still can live off of it, and I still have really loyal collectors that like what I do, and it seems like the bear market affects them a bit, but not too much not too much for me to be hungry, basically. And I'm real grateful for that, because I know that not every artist out there is living this. I know that the market is super tough and red and bloody right now, but I'm happy for myself and for the artists that do not have to struggle now, because you know how it is out there. So this is a great. It's some kind of validation, on this market, to still be able to perform and pull cool things off.
Go.
Yeah, I can go real fast. I think a lot of times, honestly, it's kind of frustrating. The space can be a lot of times, especially I imagine from people looking outside, looking in, just because there's a lot of people ripping people off. Sentiment is low, like all this other type of stuff. And so I kind of think like, how does that make me feel, about moving forward with the space? And I think if anything, it's a bigger driver for me to kind of continue to be here, because at least I know for myself, I can be, a good person in this space. I can be a good example. So that way, people can then maybe eventually identify that not everyone here is a crook. And that there are people here that are actually, producing good work and have good values. And so, some days are better than others in regards to how the space can be, but my goal and mission has been to just keep moving forward and show people that there are, kind and generous and good people here. So
I love that. And, that's something I'm all about as well. Like, all the negative stuff gets the headlines, but they're some of the greatest and most upfront people I've ever met in the space, and everything's transparent. So you do get an opportunity over time to see who's real and who's not. So I'm with you, Jeremy, and I think that's wonderful.
Yeah, I like that, Jeremy, a lot. And I think that's a great sentiment to bring to the space today. I suppose, I would say to artists to remember to find your joy, to like find whatever it is about the NFT space that brought you joy and cultivate that. Because from my experience as an artist who's gone through, really, really dramatic success periods, and then things slow down and cool off, and then come back and things get successful and things start moving again, things get heat up again, and they cool off. Like, that's a cycle that's really natural and normal. And so, to understand that, think about what your motivation is, and find something in the NFT space, the digital art space is the way I actually prefer to think about it, that brings you joy. And remember why you started creating art to begin with. Think about, when demand is down and momentum slows, what are you going to do? Are you going to just like get disappointed, discouraged, and disappear? Or like, because I think that's a statement. I think that's a statement, and it's not a good one, personally. And that's not why I make art. I make art because I started making art when I was a teenager because I couldn't sleep. So like, I already know that I'm going to be leaving a conceptual trail behind me across time, no matter what I do or where I go, So, so bring that kind of like energy to the space, because, I'm always happy to see for the success stories, but I've got DMs full of artists that are asking me what to do because it sucks. And there's nothing to tell them except just find your joy, cultivate it, and protect that creative spirit, because that's what is the only thing that really, really lasts. So.
Absolutely. I love that. And I do think there's been a big separation of the space where some artists are doing great and many are getting no sales, where it's starting to move much more, to the haves and have nots, unfortunately. So I feel you on that. Sadboi, would love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, I definitely reciprocate what everyone has just said. I definitely resonate with what Adam just said. This place is very up and down. It's tumultuous. And I would just say, it's okay to fail. It's okay to stumble. Things are going to get rough at times, and at the end of the day, you have to remember, we are artists. We are going to make art no matter what. That's what I've always done. That's what we all do, right? And if you just stick to that, I have to believe that you'll have, I don't know what, depends on what your definition of success is, but you will find your rewards through that. But yeah, I also want to say I admire every single one of you. It's super good to see all you, and I think this was super fun to do today. So
I love to hear it.
Likewise, Sadboi and Jeremy,
Absolutely.
Bastien, just beautiful, man. And so glad to see all your faces and to be on this call. And OG, thank you so much for having us. Big love,
Absolute
brother.
pleasure. Yeah, I love you guys. Want to thank you so much. Really super appreciate, love being in this game with you, and love having you all here today, and look forward to continued dialogue in the future. Thank everybody for listening. We're going to take next week off and be back the following week. super hyped about all these artists. Check out all their work. They're all sick. And as you can tell, wonderful people. And it was a real joy to have everyone here today. Thanks, team.
Thanks, man.
you all. Cheers.